Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Maybe you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining us today is an author I am very excited to have here on the channel. Now, my guest today is a devoted mother, children's pastor, attorney, and author of the Tiny Tale Adventure series. With a background in psychology, conflict resolution, and dispute mediation, she brings a unique blend of empathy and understanding to her writing. Her faith and family are at the heart of everything she does, and she believes that stories can be powerful tools for growth and connection. Her books are designed not only to entertain, but to help children express their feelings, while guiding parents to better understand and nurture their children's emotional needs. And when she's not writing, she cherishes her family time, whether it's experimenting with new recipes, trying new foods, exploring hidden gems, or enjoying movie nights. With a constant flow of story ideas, she loves creating new worlds and characters for children to enjoy, all while keeping her own life filled with laughter, love, and adventure. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to our guest today, author Marteena Drinnen. Marteena, welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Hi, it's very nice to be here.
Awesome, Martina. I'm so excited to have you here. And honestly, it's so good to finally meet you in person. I've been seeing your feed and just hearing nothing but good things about your book. So I'm really excited to have you here.
Oh, that's amazing. It touches my heart. I'm hoping it's where I'm trying to make it so like entertaining and fun information on the feeds. So I'm happy you're liking it.
Awesome, awesome. And I also want to say is that you're probably, I want to say maybe the third like children's author that I featured on the channel, which is very, very awesome. I've had a lot of like YA authors, which is good, but I don't get a
Mhm.
lot of authors who write specifically for children as what we would call middle grade in the industry. So I'm really, really excited to have you here. And speaking of Tiny Tales, do you actually have copies of your books that you would like to share with the
I,
viewers?
I do. So this one here is book one. It's always room for more. And as you can see, there's Father Fox, Mother Otter, and Tiny Tail. And then I've got book two, which just has Tiny Tail on the cover, and it's Never Truly Alone. So
Oh, I
those are
love
my
it.
two books.
Very nice, Martina. Very, very nice. So, before we talk about the adventures of Tiny Tales, let's talk a little bit more about you and your growth as an author. So, let's start at the very, very beginning. So, what would you say was your aha moment or a series of aha moments that got you invested into creating a children's book series? Because from your bio, you've done a lot. You are like so many things. You are a pastor, you work in psychology, you're doing like so many things like conflict resolution. It's a lot. So, how did all of that translate into creating this incredible children's series?
So a lot of different things. I was always a writer. I wrote a ton of short stories when I was younger, and my English lit class was my favorite class because I could just be as creative as I wanted to be. The aha moment when I was practicing law, it was juvenile law.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking some of the cases that we would get. The type of law. So I practiced juvenile law, but we did what was called appointed work, which is basically the state says, hey, these parents are indigent, they can't afford an attorney, so we are going to pick and choose who gets what. So you're sitting in the courtroom waiting for that paper, and you're like, okay, you're representing mom, you're representing dad, or you're representing kid. And that's typically how it goes. Well, I took maternity leave to be with my little one, and it was month two, and I was supposed to be going back in the third month. And during month two, my husband was still practicing, and he was going through an argument that had, for lack of a better words, they were very graphic. The
Mm.
allegations were very graphic, and so he was going against said allegations, and he was practicing his different arguments, and all of that. I said, okay, you need to stop talking. And he's looking at me like, was my argument that bad? And I was like, no, 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 the argument's fine. But with all the allegations and how detailed they're being, all I can imagine is my little one who's napping in the next room. And that's when I realized I'm not going to be able to go back to work, not at least in juvenile law, and which was a big shocker to me. And so he's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I don't know, because, we were relying on both incomes. So all of that to say, we kind of just put it in God's hands. We prayed about it, and I couldn't go back to doing
Mm.
that stuff, which is common in certain fields. So while all of that was going on, we were ministering in one of our churches, and two families were having their second baby, and their first baby was showing signs of regression. So for those that don't know, it was stuff like jealousy. If they were like 2 or 3 years old, they're typically off a pacifier. Well, now there's a new baby who needs mommy's and daddy's full attention. So now they want that pacifier back, or they want that special blankie. They start regressing.
Ah.
So they start doing that kind of thing. I'm 5 years older than my sister, so I started remembering, the little tidbits of jealousy that I was getting. And so that's kind of what led to the first book, Always Room for More, because unlike other sibling stories, this one has to deal with he doesn't know where his place is going to be in the family once the new baby comes. So I
Mm.
wrote that as a small story for them. But then I showed it to my husband, who said, with some editing, this might actually be good. And I said, thank you. Kind of a backhanded compliment. But yeah. And so that's just how it started. And then I just kept going and going and going.
Very nice. Very, very nice. And as we get later in the interview, we're also going to talk about, creating the book, the artistry and everything
Yeah.
at that. So now let's go forward in time a little bit. So let's start with the very, very first book. Now, as you just mentioned, this first book is talking about, that sibling jealousy, that regression, and where does the child fit in the new family dynamic. So, as you were outlining and drafting the overall story, what was your goal going into this project for your very first book at the time? And ultimately, what was the promise you're making, not just to yourself as an author and also as a parent, but also readers of these types of stories, as well as other parents as well who may be experiencing the similar thing?
So, well, I'll break it down first. So the first book was specifically written with the idea of those two families that were going through it. But as I was writing, it kind of felt like I was also speaking to my younger self and telling them,
Mm.
hey, it's all going to be okay. And we do want more children. So then it became, well, I want to write this so that my son will know that it's okay. That just
Right.
because there's a new member of the family doesn't mean that you are replaced. So that's kind
Absolutely.
of, yeah. And so I think the promise that I can assure throughout my books is there is a problem and there is a solution.
Mm.
So there is problems, there is big feelings that these kids just can't portray just yet, right? Like when you're a
Right.
child, happy, sad, angry. You don't really know much else. So stuff like
That's true.
jealousy is just like, how do you express that? Like, I'm happy there's a baby, but I'm also mad that there's a baby. So what I can definitely promise is I will not write something that my own child won't be able to read. And that I know is safe for families. That promise I can definitely make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, here's a little fun little question, a series of fan questions that are going to be sprinkled throughout. And these are questions I've gathered over the years doing the show. And one fan question I keep getting a lot is, are you a pantser or a planner when it comes to your writing?
Ooh, that is good. Ooh. Um, it depends. I will write a story when there's an automatic and inspiration, right? But, and so I will write that whole thing, but then I'll go back and go, yikes. And then I will start planning and being like, okay, I like this paragraph concept. Maybe we expand upon that. So typically, I want to say I'm a pantser, but if I'm also working, like on a side note, I am working on a novel and that thing has been planned. There is pages of outlines. So I'm kind of in that mix. Like I know what I want to happen. It's just how to get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another fan question I get a lot talks about characters as well. Now, this is a two-part question. Number one, when creating the characters for the Adventures of Tiny Tales, how did you write the characters and create the characters to be believable and authentic? And secondly, of all the characters, who is your favorite? And who was the one that was the most difficult to write out or to showcase?
Okay. So I'll do the second part first. The most difficult one I would say was Mother Otter. So I kind of had an idea of what I wanted these characters to be. I wanted Tiny Tail to be expressive through art, which that's his whole thing. If he feels something, he wants to paint it or draw it or whatever. Father Fox, very simple for me to make. I wanted him to be smart and teaching and that
Mhm.
fatherly figure. Mother Otter was very difficult because I didn't necessarily want to base her off of me, but I
Mm.
didn't want it to be like Mother Bear in like if you don't remember this show, Little Bear.
Oh, I love that show. I absolutely
I
love that
love
show.
it. I love it so much, but I didn't want it to be like a copy paste of Mother Bear. She's just
Right.
in the house. That's all she does is she makes cookies. Like I know it's from my kid's perspective, but I wanted a little bit more from her. So I had to kind of figure out how to make her kind of a stay-at-home mom, kind of that motherly figure, but not a copy and paste. So that one was the more difficult one. And then I'm sorry, the first question was who's my favorite?
The first question was, when writing, the characters in Tiny Tales, how did you make them feel believable? And I think you kind of hinted on that you didn't want it to be like a copy and paste of other characters or maybe inspired by,
Mhm.
people in real life. You wanted them to be their own individual.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I know a lot of authors will do I guess character sheets. So they'll think about, what's their favorite food and what would they like to do on their days off. So that kind of stuff. I did that, but more mentally than writing it down. So Father Fox, I made him more intellectual than like sporty. Mother Otter, she's more calm, but she also loves to go swimming. And then Tiny Tail again with the expressions of just through artwork. So I kind of find that one thing that they're passionate about and then try to encompass that throughout their character.
Nice. Very, very
Yeah.
nice. So now let's go and jump forward a little bit. So after you wrote the first book and started planning, book two, I'm very curious. When did you tell your friends and your family that you were working on these projects? And the reason I bring this up is, as authors, we're very, very closeted when it comes to our work. We don't want to tell people because we don't know what their reaction is going to be. Now, I've had a lot of people on the show who have said that they've had, great reception, great reaction from, friends and family. But in other cases, some people have even said on the show that they have not told other friends and family because they wanted to keep it, hidden in secret, at least up to the point of publication. And that's when they can tell them, hey, I created this book and it's gotten so many reviews and such. So for you, Martina, when did you feel comfortable sharing the news with your family and friends that you were working on this incredible series?
Family, I would say I told pretty immediately. So my husband was the first one that read the very first draft and made the backhanded compliment, with editing, this will look nice. And I'm like, thanks so much, honey. Love you. Um, uh, I think so. It was after that draft that I found a mentor who was going to help walk me through the publication process. And when I found her, I think is when I told my parents and then my in-laws, because I was going to need help with my own child at the time. Like, hey, I need you to watch him for like 2 hours here and there so I can get some writing done, so I can meet with this mentor, that kind of thing. But everyone else, I don't think I told until I had an illustrator, which was about 4 or 5 months after the editing had done, like had been completed.
Dang,
Mm-hmm.
my goodness indeed. Now, once the books were published, what was the general reaction like from readers and reviewers, and maybe also parents who have also picked up the books? Were they positive, very critical, or a 50-50 split?
Honestly, pretty positive. The first book came out March of 25. Yes. So it was pretty positive. I had been working on it. I had been talking about it. The marketing was intense. So we just kept going with it and then got a bunch of family and friends to read it over. I then did a women's book, not a book, a women's speaking at a women's conference. So that had really good feedback as well. So the first book, very, very good. The second book, I don't think I marketed it as well as the first. I'll be honest with you. I was kind of juggling a bunch of different stuff at the time. So, kind of in person, great reviews. Online, I there's not a lot of people leaving reviews. So
Right.
it's a stark contrast. But I think that was more marketing than anything else because I was trying to just get it out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And all that's going to be touched upon when we go into probably my favorite segment of the interview, the business side of being
Mm.
an author. Now, this is a question that I also wanted to ask, and this is going to be a sort of like a part two when we get into like the business side. But the first part of the question that I wanted to ask you, not only as an author, but since you are also a parent as well. And I've asked this quite a lot from other children's authors who are also parents, or even just authors who are parents themselves. It's this notion of, as you said earlier, you want to write something that your kids will enjoy as well, that you wanted your kids to learn from. And I'd like to hear your honest response on, books that are marketed either for children and maybe touching upon, I want to say grown up or mature things, but things that we adults may deal with, but telling that to a child in a way that they can understand, it can sometimes be a hit or a miss depending on how it's presented. So for you, how were you able to write something that is grown up for a child to understand, but doesn't dumb down their intelligence? Because kids are very smart. They can pick up things
Mhm.
very, very quickly. So how were you able to balance that in your writing?
I think the key is really to sit down and think it through. So there is a third book that's in the process, and I'm not really trying to put a plug in here, but I think it ties in very well with what we're talking about. The third book has to do with Tiny Tail helping his family, helping another family through a very, I don't want to say a dangerous situation, but a natural disaster. So it was taken after Hurricane Helen. So the book itself was written after the events of Hurricane Helen, which was very scary for people around here on East Tennessee. And we had actually gone over to Cobb County to help out with their issues. How to express that to a child without scaring them, right?
Right.
That's the key. So that went through multiple drafts of, well, how would I explain this to a kid without scaring them, but showing them the importance of what it is to be a volunteer? So that's kind of what I do is I think about, okay, here's the issue. Now, how do I present it in a way? And sometimes I'll just have to call someone and be like, hey, if I spoke to your kid about this topic and I said this, would that be okay? Or is that too much? And I think I think you need more feedback from people because I can express something to mine, but it's not exactly how someone else would express it to theirs. It might be too much. It might not be enough at all. And that's where the age ranges come too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now we're going to go and talk about probably another important segment, which is the what I like to call what does it mean to be an author in the digital age? Because honestly, there's a lot of questions to unpack in this section. So, as sort of like a starter set of questions to lead into this segment, I would love to hear your thoughts on, as an author, how do you deal with probably the dreaded duo, writer's block and imposter syndrome?
I'm still in imposter syndrome. I remember when I first wrote my book and I got it published, I was very happy. And then I went to an event with my husband and they said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he goes, "Well, I'm an attorney." And they look at me and they're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a stay-at-home mom." And he looked at me and looked back at them and was like, "She's an author. Why didn't you say that?" And I was like, I don't know. I'm a stay-at-home mom. That's what I do. So no, the imposter syndrome is real. When that happens though, I think it's more of just having to remind yourself you have a message, whatever that is. You've
Right.
worked so long on whatever it is that you want to get out there. So just it's a writing. It's I had this message, right? And then I had this one. And I still have more that are just sitting there waiting. So I don't think imposter syndrome ever goes away. To be fair, even when you're an attorney, there's still imposter syndrome because I look at other ones going, oh man, they're taking on like a major murder trial. I'm dealing with this guy had a small bag of weed in his car. I am not a real attorney then, am I? But no, you're the same thing. It's just trial, it's preparation. So everyone has it, no matter what field you work in. Everyone is going to have imposter syndrome.
Very true. Very, very true. And that kind of goes in line with the next question, which is a very, very loaded question, Martina. So brace yourself for this one. And ultimately, as this segment implies, it is about what does it mean to be an author in the digital age, because the industry has changed in the last 20 years or so. 20 years ago, you can go even like 26 years ago, self-published books, small press books, hybrid books were not seen as a valid form of publication. They were often seen as a lesser form, and trad was the dominant, and it's still the dominant form of publication. Well, we can't say that now after 26 years, almost going on close to 30 years, because social media and the internet have changed the playing field. You have so many new authors rising up, so many incredible storytellers, and social media has played a big boon in that, because you look on Instagram alone, there are so many authors. In fact, a lot of people that I've had featured on the show for the last 8 years have been from Instagram. That's my main source.
Mhm.
And they are some of the most incredible people I have ever met. And while social media is a big help for us authors, it's also a double-edged sword. It can be emotionally draining. We leave ourselves exposed, and there's just too much. it can be a deflating thing. So for you, Martina, with all that said, what has still disciplined you to still be engaged with the Adventures of Tiny Tales? And I like saying disciplined instead of being motivated, because originally motivated, at least for me, is like, in a sense, oh, I had an idea that went with that, but motivation's like, as one person said, like maybe a spur of the moment or something that's spontaneous. But discipline
Mhm.
is a sense of like, I made a commitment. I love doing this. I'm going to keep myself busy. I'm going to hone my craft. And even if it takes, a very long time to get the next book out, I'm going to do it.
Wow, you were not kidding. That is a loaded question. um, so I think what helps me, especially in the social media department, I was so against TikTok. A ton of people use Book Talk, and that is awesome. But I was struggling with Facebook and Instagram, and now we're adding TikTok and LinkedIn and who knows what, just trying to
Mhm.
get myself out there. Um, so I think what's actually really helped though is I dedicate at least once a week to what I call Tiny Tail Tuesdays. And so every week on a Tuesday, I will make a post in advance that will help people. Sometimes it's something like, hey, moms or dads, whoever parent is at home, I know it's the summer. I know your kids are probably bouncing off the walls. Here's a fun, simple activity that'll get them out of your hair for 10 minutes. Right? It's stuff
Right.
like that. It's I think that also brings it down to, hey, I'm a mom here too. I cannot be on social media every day. So here's what I found that's helped me. Hopefully it'll help you. And I think that just makes it more personable.
Right.
And I get calls sometimes. I'll get calls or text messages. It says, hey, I tried so and so. It actually didn't work. Or, hey, it did work. Here's some, other ideas. And I think that's just how is making it more, as I said before, like social, personable. Because it's
Absolutely.
easy for anyone to, make a quick little, hey guys, this is me. Here's my book. Okay, bye. Like I could do that 50 times a month. Or I can promote something or just help. I can help people with something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, this next question is another very loaded one, and it's something that I've thought about a lot as not only as an author, but also someone that has worked in education for
Mhm.
a few years now. And that is, the role of authors now in the digital age. And I'm going to use, a little timetable really quick is, you know, the industry now more than ever needs authors in the wake of, AI created books, AI generated books. And we look back, a few years ago to the lockdown years, that really changed the way we get information, and also especially if you look at children as well. And I've actually talked with this on another show with another guest about the rise of illiteracy among children and you know young adults, and it's something that has really stuck a core to me of why authors are needed now more than ever, because a lot of children during the lockdown grew up with social media. They grew up with the digital media. And it's unfortunate that there is that unfortunate disconnect between books and electronics. And one of my guests said, which is something that is very, very profound, is that social media and the lockdown created a wave of new authors entering the industry, and maybe it's oversaturated. But as time has gone on, despite these new authors entering the industry, it has not led to a significant rise in reading, which is, a shame. And I could be wrong in that statement. I could be wrong, but there hasn't been any dramatic changes, I should say. So ultimately, my question to you is this, and it's a two-part, Martina. As
Mhm.
a parent, what is your thoughts on sort of like authors having a new role in the sense of being the person that gets someone back into reading. And secondly, also as a parent, creating books that are not overtly stimulating a child's brain with either in illustrations that are too maybe vibrant or too out there, almost like we look at media nowadays, because people have been going back to, especially parents, have been going back to shows like, stuff that I grew up with, like Little Bear, Franklin,
Hmm.
where it's calm. It's not like in your face. So I would like to hear your thoughts on these two important things.
So, as a parent, and this is what we also try to stress, and why I've created books for the younger audiences between 3 and 7. If you can make a kid read, and I mean really fall in love with reading, they will be readers for the rest of their lives. Now,
Absolutely.
the problem, and it is unfortunate because we have high illiteracy here in the state of Tennessee. And so we try to promote and make it come alive for these kids. So whenever I go to schools and I'm reading a book, I also do a craft or an activity or a science experiment. Because some kids don't want to just sit there. Some kids want to do something. And so if you can tie a lesson in with your book, if you can
Hmm.
get them active or engaged in conversation, which I'll often stop in the middle and be like, so what do you guys think? I want feedback. Hey, he's feeling this way. Do you understand why? Or have you ever felt this way? When you start talking and start bringing them into the conversation versus just talking at them, I think that really helps with keeping their attention spans. And I
Absolutely.
am, yeah, and I am one of those moms. My kid is watching Little Bear, old school Blues Clues,
Yes.
Franklin, all of it. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. And that's why in my books, and why it took so long to find an illustrator, I tried to stick with, and I'm trying to find a good picture here. I tried to stick with that Berenstain Bears feel.
Yes, I can definitely see that.
Mhm. So that's what I try to do, because I'm also one of those, listen, ADHD is on the ride. My husband has ADHD, so we have to watch that with our little one. So we have like specific times we watch TV, specific times we go out to play. And then what we've made a habit is every night before bed, we read 1 to 3 books. And he loves it. That is his time with daddy. He sits there and he listens and they talk and they make the funny voices, all of it. And it gets him active and it gets him really into that. Unfortunately, there's a lot with the AI.
Hmm.
People have seen it as a cash grab. I've seen advertisements on there of, hey, we can help you write 20 books in 1 year. Okay. I mean, what kind of books though? And you know what they're using and how they're doing it.
Right.
I don't have a problem with AI assisting. We use spell check, we use certain things
Yes.
like that. So it's a necessary evil. So it's just the question of, are you using it to think for you or just to help you as a tool? And I think
Absolutely.
that's the disconnect that a lot of people have.
Very true. Very, very, very true. And that now perfectly segues into my favorite segment, the business side of being an author. So, as a little icebreaker question for this segment, Martina, when you got around to marketing your book, how did you go about doing it initially? And looking back, is there anything you would have changed?
Ooh, okay. Looking back, I think I would have gone more through my community. I think it would have been a major hit if I would have, and I did to a degree, but not to the very end. If I went like door to door, with flyers or big businesses and said, hey, I've got this book. I'm a brand new author. Would you mind helping me out? I did that towards the end, and I really think I should have done that at the beginning. What I did do, I made a page. So I had like my personal Facebook page. And through that, I made a page that had my same name, but said author on the side. And what I did there is I said, hey, there's this new book coming out. here's some pictures that my illustrator had drawn, like the not the full colored, but like sketches or ideas or stuff like that, just to get people engaged. I sent that to all my family and friends. That's kind of how I came out with, hey, I'm doing this book thing like 4 or 5 months later. And then that's how I started, which I think was a great idea, because you hit all family and friends first, you show them what you're doing, you get them excited. Then later on I changed it to the Adventures of Tiny Tail Facebook
Right.
page, and that brought everybody else in that was interested in the book.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Now, as another fan question that I get a lot, who would you say were the authors or books that may have inspired you in some way?
Ooh. So just to be an author in general, or for these particular books?
Let's do a little bit of both. So, who would you say are
Okay.
the authors that were inspired you to write? And then for your Tiny Tales adventures, who are the authors that sort of inspired you to approach like either the art style or maybe the type of storytelling?
Okay. I would say, to be an author, I loved the Lemony Snicket series, A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Oh my gosh. I
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read any of those books except for the first
No.
one, but yeah, I remember those books growing up.
Mm-hmm. I love those books. I loved the fact that it was a story, but I was also learning new things. So, like, in the middle of the story, he would say, oh, and if you don't know what deja vu is this. And then you would turn the page and it's the exact same page. And it would be like, oh, if you don't know what deja vu is, so it was like showing you what it was. So it was cool the way that he would teach while also writing the kids book, the adventures and how they come across and how they defeat evil. It was really
Right.
cool. After that, I would say it was a little bit of C.S. Lewis. I loved Narnia.
Oh, yes.
The world building was phenomenal. So I love Narnia. And then right after that was James Patterson's The Maximum Ride series.
Oh, I don't know that one. I don't think I know that series.
That one was more of a young adult series. I picked it up in high school. And I loved X-Men growing up. And so it was basically X-Men for teens. And I loved it.
Ooh, nice, nice. Now,
hmm
kind of another book that, for me as an author, has also played a role. Have you read any of the Redwall series?
No, I've heard such good things about it, though.
Oh, that is, it's kind of, well, it's kind of true. It is kid version Game of Thrones in the sense that if you fall in love with a character, don't attach yourself too much to them because they're not going to live. And the world building of that series is so good. I highly recommend it to anyone. And it's a pretty like challenging read. I would definitely say it's like late elementary, early middle school kind of books. It's such a
Okay.
good series. There's about maybe I think 22 books now, and I've read
Wow.
all. I've read all the books.
That's incredible. I love that. I'm gonna have to give that a shot because I love the world building. I cannot write fantasy, but I love to read it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's kind of shift into another thing, which I think we touched upon a little bit in the previous questions, and that is writing for the audience. Now, as we talked about previously, Martina, like this book, The Adventures of Tiny Tales, it's for middle grade for children as well as for parents as well. And I think you definitely agree that as an author, there is a balancing act we find ourselves in. We want to write a story that's unique to us, but we also want to write something that's familiar to people who know the genre or who have expectations of stories made for children. And it can be a difficult thing to balance out. So for you in writing The Adventures of Tiny Tales, how did you balance the two to highlight the strengths of both?
I think what my thought process is, when I looked up books about siblings, a lot of them, like expecting a new sibling, a lot of them had to do with excitement. Like, hey, you've got this new sibling coming in, right? This is awesome. And everyone's talking about the new baby. And so I read all of that because it was for the kids of, hey, to get them excited. So that was the kind of books that I was seeing. But I didn't see any that had to deal with what I dealt with and what I was seeing a bunch of other kids dealing with the jealousy concept. So I stuck with, okay, well, mom is expecting a new baby. There's all of these changes that's happening. So that's very familiar in anyone that has, a home with more than one kid. But I gave it a little bit of a twist of, well, instead of excitement, we're going to go to fear and see what happens. And so he's fearful. Well, what does that mean for me? And there's a part in the story where, because how he talks is, or not how he talks, but like how he expresses himself is through art.
Right.
So if you see here, you've got the parents over here with the new baby, and he's by himself in this little corner, right? And so that's what he's afraid of. And so when I said, ooh, that's an interesting concept, let's continue with that. And that's how I just started writing. With the second book having to do with fighting bedtime, typically when one fights bedtime, and the illustrations are beautiful, but when they fight, it's just because, well, I don't want to go to bed yet. Okay, well, you have to. Well, I don't want to. And so it's jumping up and down. It's this, it's that. But the twist that I have is, well, what if I'm not with you tomorrow? What if I don't know what's happening? So again, a little bit of that fear kind of comes in. So to answer the question, I think you put your characters in a situation that everyone has dealt with, right? I mean, I still fight sleep to this day. So you find that one thing that everyone can relate to, but then put that little spin on it. That little, different perspective.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the illustrations, because I think that is also very important when it comes to writing for children as well, because you want the illustrations to match the story. Now, after you had finished, writing out the draft, how did you go about finding the illustrator, and how important is it? And this could be like a message to like other children's authors that, are looking for an illustrator of their own. What would you advise them to look into as almost like a checklist when hiring an illustrator for their children's book?
So for me personally, it took forever, like 4 or 5 months, to find an illustrator. I had gone through, I had paid, the deposit fees for these illustrators to send me their work. I had some scammers that sent me, AI stuff claiming it wasn't AI. And I'm like, I know AI when I see it, kind of thing. Which is important because from my understanding, Amazon can blacklist you if they find out it's AI generated. So yeah, so we went for a while. The way I found mine was the mentor that was teaching me how to go through it had her illustrator. Her illustrator just finished a class of other illustrators. And so I went through her classmates to find mine, which was amazing because Anna is wonderful. I told her what I was looking for, and I saw of her portfolio, and she was amazing. The advice I would give, see their portfolio, see if they show stages of them drawing it out. That way, it's, actually them, and not just computer generated.
Right.
And then the other thing, which is, it's very, I understand an illustrator's perspective, but as an author, there is a fight between authors and illustrators as to who owns the characters.
Yes, that is very, very true.
So, and I understand that fight, but for instance, when I spoke with my illustrator, I was like, these are gorgeous, these are perfect. But if I want to use a character in marketing, right? Or, putting it on t-shirts, on hats, what does that mean? And she's like, well, for our contract, the character is yours. I'm just drawing it. So that was great for me because that means I could do whatever. I had seen other illustrator. It was a couple. I don't remember their names. They drew beautiful pictures, gorgeous. They wanted $10,000 up front, and they were going to keep the character. And I said, I, I can't do it. And so that was kind of a blow, thinking, well, does that mean I can't ever have an illustrator? I mean, we went to, it was heartbreaking knowing, all of these things. So I would say really look at whatever contract that you sign. And then also, as the attorney in me, have a contract.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is very important. So that would be my advice. See them actually drawing it, get different ideas, see who owns that character, and make sure that it's stated that in that contract.
Very true. Very, very true. And
Mhm.
here's actually a little fun little question. Now, a few days ago, I want to say maybe last month, yeah, it was last month, there was Human Voices Only. And for those who don't know, that is an event where it's on social media, but it's a huge thing where authors and narrators collaborate on, working on the book or providing snippet reads. And I'm wondering, Marteena, have you ever partake in Human Voices Only? Have you ever worked with a narrator or maybe contacted a narrator during those, free snippet reads? And I've heard your words, come alive.
I actually haven't, and that sounds really cool. So I never even thought that that was a thing. So, but I would totally be interested.
Absolutely. It is such an amazing thing. And it only ties into this notion of, collaboration in the indie community because it is so very, very important. And I would like to give you the opportunity to give, a shout out to other indies, other creatives you have met in your career, and maybe other people you've met outside of social media, maybe fellow authors or just anyone that has helped you along your way.
Absolutely. Well, number one, I would have to say Casey Burke. She does the Buckaroo Bow series, so it's for kids that are a little bit younger than 3. But it's all rodeo related. They're adorable pictures, and without her help, I would not be able to publish at all. I wouldn't even know where to start. After that, I would say Amy Curry has been wonderful. She sends me Instagram things like every day that says, "Hey, keep going. You've got this." So all of that encouragement, that really helps. And on those super emotional days where I feel like I'm not doing enough, they just they hit right there. So very happy for her. She does a lot of mystery books, and she just came out with a kids series, so a middle school series. So that's
Right.
cool. And then in person, I've also met Erica Canny, and she does more romanticy stories. I have not had the privilege of reading her books just yet, but she is a phenomenal person. She is making it's like Fantasy in the Forge, which I believe is in Pigeon Forge, and it's just this huge event for all these fantasy people to come in and have fun. And yeah, it's been great. I've been met a lot of people, and they've been wonderful and very supportive and very helpful, because I'll just approach and be like, "Hi, imposter syndrome starting. Can you help me? Because I don't know what I'm doing."
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now this goes into a few last questions before we get to the final question, Marteena.
Mhm.
Now, this is a good little fan question. Now, would you ever consider taking one of your future adventures of Tiny Tales and adapting it into a chapter book?
Ooh, that has never crossed my mind, but it's not a bad idea. I would have to sit on that. But I think my stories are more for the younger generations, but if there was enough of a following, kind of like oh, what are those shows? I'm blanking now, but the shows where it's like it's following them as they're growing up, like Boy Meets World.
Yes.
If it
Mm-hmm.
was so much of a following that you wanted to see more as they matured, possibly, possibly.
All right. All right. And here is, ooh, now this one's actually a really good question. Now, you kind of hinted at this in the beginning that besides your Adventures of Tiny Tales, you're also working on your very first novel. And I know you're probably, keeping that under wraps and, very, very secret. But I was wondering if you can tell us, what that transition has been like, from initially writing for middle grade for children and then writing a full length novel that's going more into the YA category for an audience that's, a few years older.
So it's definitely different. I did a lot of writing, and I don't remember. I don't know if you would know, but DeviantArt. I was huge on
Oh, I
DeviantArt when I was
remember
in middle.
those. Yes.
Yes, so I wrote tons of short stories on there. And I deleted my account because I don't know. But a lot of that was I had already written a lot of young adults, a lot of adult, and I say adult, but not like explicit.
Right.
My thing is I love a good romance story. Like I am a Princess Bride fan through and through. My problem with finding books for my love of romance books is it's either way too hallmarky, right?
Hmm.
Where everything is fine. It's one little tiny problem, but everything is fine. And then very explicit. And so I feel like there's not a lot of in between
Right.
because I'm not really a hallmarky girl, but I'm really not an explicit girl. So my story that I've been working on is something that is more realistic, so takes
Right.
away the hallmark, but is family friendly in the sense of anyone can read it. My kid can read it, my sister, anyone can read the story, and it bases more on true love than it is on just physical attraction. So that's kind of like
Absolutely.
the story I'm working on.
Nice. All right. I like it. I like it. And now, Martina, we come to the final question of this amazing author interview. Now, with everything we've talked about and more, at the end of the day, what do you hope readers will take away from the Adventures of Tiny Tales? And what would be your pearl of wisdom to any future author or writer listening to this interview right now?
So my goal of Tiny Tale is to assist children in understanding their emotions and being able to process them. So that's goal number one. And then the second goal with that being to let parents and assist parents in trying to understand those feelings and assist them in teaching them about that. So, in essence, bridging the gap of communication between parents and children. Working within juvenile law, a lot of issues can be resolved if there was just communication. But sometimes, as parents, and I've fallen prey to it, sometimes as parents, what matters a lot to a child may not matter so much to us, and so we kind of bypass it when it's something really intense for a child. So the example I use often is, my son may want an ice cream cone one day, right? Like I had told him that day we were going to go get ice cream, and then we don't get it, and I'm like, okay, whatever, what's the big deal, we'll get it tomorrow. Well, maybe he had hoped for that all day long. Maybe that's the only time he feels that I'm really present with him. But if I just bypass it and I don't talk with him, then how is he to know? And so I want the books that I write to kind of put that and kind of change the perspective a little bit of, hey, what may not be a big deal to you is actually really big to kiddo. So maybe we
Mhm.
need to slow down a little bit. And it happens with distractions. I mean, we're all in our phones now, we're all on social media.
Mhm.
It happens. So kind of just to slow down and to remember what's important. So that's uh, my take of what my goals are. As far as advice for other authors, keep on writing. I know everyone says it, but just keep on writing and don't worry about editing until after you've written the first draft. Just get the thoughts out there. It's not going to be 110% all the way. I am also a perfectionist, but it'll be there. It'll be easier to edit once it's all written. So
Absolutely. 100%. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude another amazing, incredible interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. Want to give a huge thank you to Marteena Drinnen for coming on the show, making her official debut, and hopefully not the last time we see her on the show. Now, Martina, where can people find you on the socials if they want to reach out and connect, as well as purchase a copy or two of The Adventures of Tiny Tales? And bonus, will you be doing any appearances or have any announcements you would like to share?
So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under The Adventures of Tiny Tail, and all his pictures are there, so you'll be able to find him easily. We are working on a website of our very own, so hopefully that'll be launching this month. Hopefully. As far as big events, we have some back to school bashes coming up in August. So we will be in attendance. And as far as purchasing, because this kind of goes hand in hand, we are on Amazon. But if you are here in East Tennessee, we will be in 2 locations. We will be at the Golden Goose Marketplace, which is a thrift and consignment shop. And we will be in our very first local bookstore, Once Upon a Bookstore. That is the name of it. So we will be there too. They will be launching their opening on August 1st.
Excellent. I will link all that down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. Thank you again for joining us so much for another incredible episode here. And if you'd like to see Martina back on the show in an episode of the Writers Hub, or have her be a part of a all children's authors roundtable in the foreseeable future, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and we'll see you all next time.